Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shield, dust lights, substances, spassels. I'm a useful idiot, and today I'm going to talk about chemtrails. And I haven't really brought up this kind of topic before, and I've kind of stayed away from this because I wanted to gather some more information. This story is developing as we speak, and more information is starting to come out about this phenomenon. And with all the machinations of humanity going on a daily basis, it's hard to almost to keep up with all of the stuff that's going on, whether it's oil spills or deforestation or tar sands, mountaintop removal, decimation of species, global war, global unrest, economic fraud. So then Fukushima, and then we throw in chemtrails. So anyway, I finally squeezed it in. I know a lot of good friends of mine and a lot of my regulars like Minuteman are very interested in this topic, and I've taken a good look at it. So I'm just going to kind of present some facts as I've found them as sort of a primer for those who haven't kept up with the fact that the chemtrail phenomenon has gone from conspiracy theory to conspiracy fact. Now, two of the most surprising aspects of this, to me, is this has been going on since the 1990s, and in fact, there's been efforts at weather modification and chemical engineering, geothermal engineering, going back 50 years before that. And of course, one example we've seen of that is the use of chemical agents, including Agent Orange in Vietnam. But this cloud seeding and geoengineering and stratospheric aerosol geoengineering are the technical terms for this. So the fact that there's technical terms for this once again proves that this phenomenon does exist. And also we've ascertained that these chemtrails are made up of aluminum, barium, and strontium, none of which are particularly good for you. And the other thing that surprised me about this, other than the fact that it goes back to at least the 1990s, is that it's an international effort. This is going on all over the globe. And Mr. Minuteman's videos, of course, show the phenomenon as it's happening over in Europe and the Netherlands. And I live here on the West Coast, and I see it daily. And all anyone has to do is go outside and look and see the difference between contrails and chemtrails. And, of course, the contrail is the rapidly condensing trail that appears behind jets, and chemtrails are the ones that streak the sky and dissipate very slowly. And that's one of the characteristics of the cloud seeding and stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. They spray these particles into the atmosphere and the clouds, and the particles descend. And that's one of the most obvious pitfalls to this whole development, is the fact that we now have a 50,000% increase in aluminum particles in our environment in just the last 5 years. And of course, one of the problems with aluminum is it builds up in the human body and it can't be flushed out. So now we have two parts of 39,000 parts of aluminum to 2 parts of a normal environment. And of course, we also know from studies that aluminum causes cognitive disabilities, memory problems, respiratory problems, and Alzheimer's. So obviously having this amount of aluminum. And one thing that I've seen in documentaries about this as well is that it really changes the acidity of soil, makes it very difficult for growing, and actually can decimate a lot of forests. It's involved in deforestation as well, and can also help create more wildfires, and we're seeing the results of that. So anyway, this is something that goes back to the 1990s. It's an international effort, and of course I'm interested in it because the fact that our own government officials deny any knowledge of it, of chemtrails, and become very uncomfortable when asked about it, means it's something that I am interested in. And so we have scientists and corporations and governments that are all involved on these processes. We have seminars and meetings and documents all talking about stratospheric aerosol geoengineering and cloud seeding. And the attached documentaries that I've included here have a lot of good information on this, some of the best I've seen. And a lot of these scientists are presented with some very difficult questions to ask, to answer. And officials so far seem to only admit that this idea of stratospheric aerosol geoengineering is in the discussion phase. But of course, the results are right in front of us. It's happening every day. And there's a lot of speculation on what the agenda is, and that's what interests me. And that still remains a mystery. There's talk about communication, assisting the communication age we live in, wireless technology. They talk about seeding clouds to deflect sunlight and to control global warming and weather. We've seen a lot of interesting chemical aerosol activity when there's storms and hurricanes, as if they're trying to change the course. And then, of course, there might be weaponization going on, or it might be a control mechanism. And then, of course, there's the depopulation angle. That's always been one of my interesting theories about chemtrails. It wouldn't be that hard to have, say, 3 or 4 elements released in the air, and the human body would ingest these elements, and then sometime at a later date they release an active element, a 5th element, 5th or 6th element that was missing from the original combination that activates a reaction, and maybe that would depopulate. Maybe people would be essentially exterminated using these chemtrail combinations. But I don't want to be a fearmonger or create more conspiracy theories. It's just an idea about how easy it would be to do if that's what they wanted to do. And one of the other interesting connections about chemtrails is the connection with genetically modified food and Monsanto, the evil, mega evil, giant food corporation that wants to control the world. And they have made a seed that is specifically aluminum resistant. So what does that mean? They have a lot of seeds that they produce that are resistant to very rugged and harsh conditions. But to make a seed that's specifically aluminum resistant is rather suspicious. But we won't know that anytime soon. And there are studies that show that chemtrails reduce rainfall as well. And that may contribute to the droughts that we have now, and certainly contributes to the wildfires. But anyway, anytime you start trying to work with the weather, you are going to release unforeseen problems. And we don't really know if the results they're seeing are what they desire, or if there are unforeseen results. But one thing that we know is true, and this is why we know that chemtrails have moved from conspiracy theory to conspiracy fact, and that is the fact that there is indeed stratospheric aerosol geoengineering and cloud seeding going on. There are public announcements of those activities going on. We have patent numbers connected with aerosol spray mechanisms in planes. A lot of these patents are licensed to the CIA, which creates another interesting part of this discussion. We don't know if it's corporations that are involved. But anyway, we know that it is going on. We know there's some sort of strategy because it's very systematic. We know that there's a great deal of funding because it's going on worldwide 24/7. So there's a great deal of funding going on. And there's also a lot of planning involved. There's formulas about it. And people are talking about it. So this has come out in the open. And to go back to the idea of adding an active ingredient, of course, to decimate populations, there may be a short list with people who have the antidote. Who knows? But the other part of this that this brings up as far as Monsanto and genetically modified food, of course, that would be a reasonable explanation, but certainly not on the scale. There has to be governments involved as well. So it'd be very interesting to find out at some point what all this means and what the connections are. There's also been talks about disaster capitalism when you have chemtrails and geoengineering and cloud seeding, and you're affecting the weather. Then there's going to be a lot of droughts and famines and crop failures. And of course, in disaster capitalism, and the fact that we actually have weather derivatives in the financial market, that could also play a part who could sell these people short, trying to manipulate the weather and food supplies in order to make commodities prices rise and fall so they can cash in on it and make money. So anyway, and then of course the bottom line is the fact that there is actually a government document called Owning the Weather, where they talk about weaponizing weather, and of course this also ties in with the HAARP radio wave array up in Alaska and a couple other places in the world that supposedly interacts with chemtrails and the elements being cloud seeded, and that HAARP somehow interacts, sending out radio waves. And so anyway, it's quite a puzzle. Certainly not all the answers are here, and hopefully the right questions have been asked, and at least maybe I can pass on this information to other people that haven't given much attention to chemtrails in addition to everything else that's going on in the world, but they well should, because this is actually a huge deal, a global phenomenon, something that's very sinister, and the fact that everybody's staying hush-hush about it, and the fact that it has such dire potential health consequences, all make this a story worth checking into. So, there is my piece on chemtrails, moving from conspiracy theory to conspiracy fact. I'm Useful Idiot. Don't you be one too.